So, welcome to today's podcast. Thanks for joining me as always. And, today I'm really excited because I have a good friend of mine and we spent a lot of time talking anyway. So, we figured let's just hop on and talk about things that we share with each other anyway and help each other. And, today I'm really glad to be joined by Brandon Jenkins. Brandon, no, I don't use that as much, but I like that, who's the founder of Tier 1 Coaching, a lot of tremendous history that you can share a little bit more about in this podcast. But I wanted to bring him on today because, we're helping folks, get their financial lives in order, which we know is very important to do. I think is all with the goal of helping people sort of recapture and gain control of their lives, right? Money is one thing. But understanding kind of why you're here, what drives you and motivates you and helps you sort of get through life's challenges and move forward is really, in my mind, more important than sort of trying to find some net worth or stash some money up somewhere. So Brandon is a coach and he's really been helping a lot of people sort of find their way in life and so they can gain the freedom and control that they all seek. And so today's topic is one I'm really hoping to get a lot of great insight from Brandon and his experience. So Brandon, thanks for joining me. It's great you were on this podcast a year or two ago or something like that. So thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, well, way too long, right? We were kind of riffing a little bit earlier on some of our monthly calls. You and I get on the phone frequently. Maybe sometime we just hit record on the monthly calls and then, you can produce that and put it out there as a podcast. Yeah, so thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I love the topic that you presented me with, and I think that we're going to tackle today, purpose, right? Understanding what is the purpose behind the things you do? What is your purpose in whatever organization you're in? What is your purpose on the planet? And that's what you believe your purpose is in all of those different aspects of your life. And I think that for most people leads to, when you understand that and you have clarity, leads to the fulfillment, leads to understanding what you're going to do with all that wealth that you are saving, investing, accumulating. It's like the for what, the so what, like what's it all for, And the idea that maybe we can help some folks start to look for what it's all for earlier rather than so much later in life, when we see a lot of folks kind of look back and say, what was that all for? The earlier you could get on that path, the right one for you, probably the better.
And especially for some kids, how do you speed up the self-discovery on these things so they can get to doing, and frankly, getting more fulfillment and enjoyment in life as much as possible? Because, unfortunately, had some more recent reminders of how time is so fleeting and sort of it evaporates before you know it. Right? You don't know what will happen on a daily basis. So I take a lot of thought around that and be grateful for each day because it basically vanishes. Unfortunately, you can buy back some time in a sense, like, to maybe get some passive income and do all these things. But if you could buy back time, Warren Buffett could buy back 10 millions of lifetimes, but he's still mortal, right? So there's only so much time. So, and I'm reminded this week because, I've come across some folks who are, maybe from COVID, right, who are now sort of shifting gears in their lives and working with some accounting professionals who are sort of second guessing the work they do and fulfillment around that. We can get so focused on what we think we should do versus what we want to do. And, I saw this crazy stat. It was, this is directed at entrepreneurs, but I would imagine this could also apply to if you have a job. The vast majority has some emotional misalignment with what they do. Right? They don't get as much fulfillment out of it and it's draining. It's causing burnout, right? The vast majority of them. And it's probably sort of impacting other areas of their life and, causing issues. So can you share more about like some of the work you've done around this and maybe, is that true for some of the folks you've dealt with or working with, even in your own consulting business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first thing that comes up for me is the idea, you said people kind of doing what they think they should do versus what they actually want to be doing. And for me, that stems from our culture, society, right? Your colleagues, your boss, your parents, your family, could be coming from your spouse, your friends, your cousins, whatever. It's, hey, you should be doing this. And that should's coming, sometimes it's coming from a good place, a place of love, and people care about you. However, it's coming from them or society, and it's not internally kind of driven. It's not you listening to what you believe you should be doing and kind of following those values and those passions and that purpose. That is, well, this is what I'm seeing I should do, so I do that. And so then that, I think, leads to burnout because you've been on this path for so long that this path might not have been the path for you. And I'm not saying you're not learning from it, you're not getting some joy out of it, some benefits out of it. Certainly you very well could be. However, the longer you're on that path and it's not really what you want to be doing, not really what you believe you're meant to be doing, that's where that burnout comes from, where that sense of, man, I have done well, I have achieved a lot. Maybe you've achieved a great role at your organization, you've promoted, and maybe you're higher up the chain of command. Maybe you've earned a really nice income for yourself and you can do all the things you want to do. And at the same time, you're thinking, man, I just feel like something's missing. I'm tired. Something's missing. Like, what else? There's got to be something else out there. Like, what is all this for? Right?
And sometimes, to your point, when you get down the path, maybe it's hard to reverse course, right? You spend a lot, maybe time, energy, education, right, into getting that far. You're like, I can't reverse course now. I've spent so much, there's such a some cost to it. I can't reverse it. And so I kind of write it out and they kind of just settle for, maybe the things that come along with it. You have to hear that's just, it is what it is, right? This is what comes with the territory. I bought into it. And I guess there's some truth to that, right? But maybe that's more just rationalizing that you can get through it.
Well, I call it the golden path fallacy. When you're following a path and you're doing it because, again, those external shoulds, or you're doing it simply because, well, I got to make a paycheck. I can't go back in income because we have this lifestyle and I have a spouse and I have kids and they have school, like private schools, and they're going to college soon. And so you start to tell yourself all this stuff that leads you to then just stick to the path you're on and believing that's kind of the only way, right? And the fallacy for me comes when we do that and we never take the time to examine the path we're on against our values, our unique strengths, our passions, our purpose, our blueprints. We never examine that path against those things that are super important to us to make sure that the way we're going, that path we're on, is actually aligned to a purpose and what we believe we should be doing. And so without that examination, you just continue along thinking that you have to do it. But the reality is you kind of don't. Perfect example is I was in the military. I just recently retired, but about mid-career, I had a commanding officer is like, think of it as the CEO of a 300-person business. And I was at the time a department head. So think, director of maintenance, director of operations, or something like that. And he, I was nearing the end of that tour and I had done well. And so chances were high that I was going to continue to promote depending on where I went after this. And so my CO said, hey, Jenks, why do you want to go to that next level? Why do you want to be a CO? Why do you want my job essentially one day? To which I said, because it's the next step on the path. It's the perfect example of how I was following a path. I was having fun, and maybe we'll get to this later, why you don't have to necessarily blow everything up and upend your life just to get a little more purpose out of things, right? And a little more fulfillment. But yeah, I was enjoying my time. I was flying helicopters. I enjoyed being in squadrons with my teammates, having a blast, right? But I couldn't really articulate why it was important to me, why I wanted to continue to do it in the moment, other than just, well, it's the next step on the path. And in the military, they will tell you there is a golden path, right? And that's kind of where I derived this golden path fallacy from, is in the military, they will say, hey, there is a golden path, and like you do well at this tour, and then you take one of a set of orders in a little box here. You take those orders, go there, do well there. Okay. Then from there, you take, here's another set of a box with more orders to, right. And it's like you follow that path and it will give you the greatest chance of your promotions, more responsibility, becoming a CEO, for example. And they call it the golden path. And it's true. My experience is that you had a greater chance of promoting and doing those things if you followed those paths. The fallacy, though, again, comes in with me sitting right there with my CEO and just not even knowing why I was still doing it. And, you know, he was a great CEO and a great mentor, and he helped me here. And he said, hey, Jenks, you might want to think about that and really do some introspection and really think long and hard about why it is important to you to continue on that path and to eventually be here. Because, you know, the further you go, the more responsibility, the more time away from family and friends, deployments, like you are going to end up giving a lot to this. And so many people do that, right? In their profession, in their careers, so many people give all this time and energy and resources to this career path at the expense maybe of family time, thinking that, well, I have to do this for my family. And at the same time, I'm not spending any of my time and energy and resources with my family. My interest in introspection and really clarifying what was important to me, my values, and how they aligned with this path. And at that time, I didn't call it the golden path fallacy. At that time, I did not have a coach. I didn't know anything of any of this as kind of blueprint or any, and we'll probably get to that later. But it was the moment that things changed for me. And I started that introspection. And from that point forward, I felt tremendously more fulfillment and joy out of remaining in the military, because I remained in the military then for another 10 years after that.
But you just maybe changed the focus on kind of like why you were doing it and the roles that would sort of line up with that.
Exactly.
Right. And so it had more alignment and it probably gave you a little bit more juice to keep going, right? Because you kind of knew the ladder shifted a little bit, like on the wall.
Well, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Mindset is the lens through which you're seeing things. It's kind of like the beliefs you have, the lens you have, and you're looking through that and seeing the world. And so my mindset had changed. I still was flying helicopters. I still was in charge of the maintenance of the squadron. And I moved on to my next role and I was a project manager. And what I was doing kind of stayed the same, but the lens I was looking at it through was different. I was looking at it through the lens of this, I'm doing this thing, but here's why it's important to me, right? I really value teamwork and I value empowering teammates. And so I was looking through that lens of, okay, I'm doing this thing I would have done anyway, but now how can I empower my teammates? How can I show up for them the way I'm supposed to show up for them? When I'd started to do that, I felt way more fulfillment out of it. Showing up to do the same stuff I would have done anyway, but I showed up with a new energy, right? A new vigor. I felt the purpose. Even though at that time I hadn't really clarified what I believe my purpose is on the planet, I was just getting more in tune with what I thought I was uniquely supposed to be doing to help my team succeed. And then that was my lens. And so showing up with that lens, man, more energized, felt greater connection to what I was doing, felt greater connection to the team mission, the team purpose, right? And so, yeah, man, it was a game changer for sure.
Yeah. And that's where when you hear stuff like that, and it can ebb and flow in life, right? We all sort of experience things in different ways and things come to us. Like I may have heard something years ago and then it finally resonates 10 years later for some odd reason, right? So there's probably a time and place for a lot of things, but when I hear things like, okay, well, I'm not going to bash like the fire movement. Like, let me find a way to retire as soon as possible so I don't have to kind of do anything, right? And I know that's a kind of simplistic approach or description. It might be bigger than that. Thinking the opposite, like, what can I do for the rest of my life that has immediate purpose I can give my heart and soul to continue to learn for in a different lens? And I think, for me, that's where I'm in my life. I said, could do something forever, like what would it be so I can stay engaged and enjoy it, right? Which is a very different lens versus, hey, what's the quickest and shortest path so I don't have to do anything else? I can get rid of the stuff I don't like doing so I can kind of just relax and maybe just spend my rest of my days traveling or on the beach. Right. Very different sort of lens. So I guess it's hard to sort of see that when you're younger. I certainly didn't have it. But over time, it comes to you because the concept of mortality becomes a little bit more in your face when you get a little bit older and start seeing more of it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't see it when you're younger.
Yeah.
And you touched on it too a little bit around sort of this blueprint. And, we think about blueprint of a map. And so how does this relate to sort of the purpose, right? What's the role of that and kind of, what's that process you look like to explore that?
Blueprint process is essentially working together to help you clarify the things that are most important to you, the things that are uniquely you, and things, values. What do you value in your everyday relationships and interactions and how you want to approach the world? What are your unique strengths, like things that you're just really great at, things that you probably don't even think twice about it. You just assume because you're so good at it that other people, what are your passions, right? A lot of people can't, you could just ask somebody, what are your passions? And a lot of people have a hard time like articulating that because we don't walk around. That's the thing about our culture is we don't walk around every day engaging in these things that make us so passionate. A lot of us are not going to our job every day and it's fueled by passion. And so it's actually kind of difficult to answer that question. And we work together. So through a process, we kind of pull that stuff out. And we pull that stuff from the things that you're engaging in on a day-to-day basis, the decisions you're making in your business, at work, the interactions you're having with people. Like we use those and we then extract like what was really memorable and important and energy giving and those kinds of things from the things that you're already doing, the activities that you're already engaging in. When we've done that for a while, then we kind of work together to filter down like what's really resonating with you, what's jumping out at you, what do you really feel when you look at all these different values and passions and strengths and purpose you have, what is it that's really jumping out at you? And just by working together, you get to a point where you get more clarity about what you believe you're uniquely meant to be doing. And then you can apply that to the job that you're in right now. And so, then when you have that clarity, you can then begin to look for, it's that lens. So you put that lens on when you go into your workplace or wherever you're going, and you're looking through that lens. And now you're looking for that alignment. The alignment between those, what could 2 days ago or a week ago would have been mundane tasks or interactions. And now you have a different lens on. And so you're looking for that alignment with purpose, passion, values. And now you begin to see that. And just those small tweaks, you begin to feel the benefits. You begin to feel a little bit more fulfillment, a little bit more energy in your days. And it goes from there.
And, these are probably, to your point, difficult things for people to maybe identify because there's just, potentially so normal to how you operate or think. And you may not, I kind of reflect those, seeing somebody on the outside, sometimes it's easier for them to see it in a lot of scenarios because you just kind of live and breathe your whole thing, right? You're just like, oh, this is normal, right?
Yeah.
I think someone to give you a little bit of a objective lens on it to sort of help you think through it, I think is hugely important because I think it's sometimes difficult. I don't know about you, but a lot, especially high achievers I know of and others, they're so critical on themselves. You forget about all the good things and, you can say, what are areas I need to improve, right? Forget about all the wonderful things I'm already neatly great at or uniquely designed to do. You almost take them for granted until you can have someone help you put a spotlight on it. So you can say how uniquely you are designed just and sort of say, what can I do differently now that I know that? Right? I do more of it. and I eliminate those other areas, right? And that's why we're talking that whether you're in your job now or in your business, it doesn't mean you have to remove it. But, this is potentially ways that can help explore ways to shift what you do over time. You will be more aligned with it, right? You don't have to kind of do a complete overhaul in a matter of days, weeks, you quit your job or something. I'm not suggesting you do that without a plan.
No, we're not. 100%.
That's not advice. So, that's why some of these things take a little time because, to that point, like connected to purpose, like asking people, like, what do you want your life to actually look like? It's sometimes hard to sort of like that because we're so ingrained to following what is being posted on Instagram or whatever, TikTok, that what life is supposed to be, right? What we're supposed to be striving for. And yet we can easily just fall prey to that without stepping back and say, does that even align to me or not?
Like,
right?
why is that so appealing to me? Maybe it's not really if I sit down to think about it. Why do I want to retire at 40 and then sit on a beach? Like, okay, let's imagine I'm doing that. Where am I getting my joy and fulfillment from? Okay, day 1, day 2, it's great sitting on that beach. Well, okay, what about day 15? Day 45? Like, seriously, people, I don't think a lot of folks, they just don't take the time to think through that. Sometimes, some people do, of course. And I think if instead you start with, what do I value? What am I uniquely positioned to do? Or what are my unique strengths and skills? And what are my passions? And you start with the foundation of purpose. Like, what do I want to spend my time doing? When you start with that and you have that, now you can look for a vision based on that. You can start to develop a vision for, okay, yeah, I wouldn't mind having enough passive income, for example, to be able to spend more time doing this because this thing over here aligns with my purpose. It aligns with my values and passions. Like, right? So if you start with that, a little bit more clarity of that, the internal, then the vision that you come up with and your financial strategy that's hopefully helping you get to that, execute that vision or realize that vision's tied to purpose. It's a purpose aligned vision. And now it has a lot more meaning for you individually than it would have before when maybe you were just like, oh yeah, you mentioned the fire movement, for example. I want to do that. I just want to be retired as soon as I can, no bills, but why? So if you start with yourself and the purpose and you really understand what you believe you're meant to be doing, now you can create a vision that's attached to that. And then your financial strategy now can help you get to a purpose aligned vision versus just any old vision.
And I don't think that these things, and we talk about obviously in this podcast, and kind of matter of fact, like, this takes time to really explore it because I don't think we typically, most people are never really challenged to think about it this way, right? We're like typically saying, well, what are you really good at? And, what kind of jobs produce the most amount of income? Maybe the extent on for some people, right? You go into college now and people are questioning, like, what are the highest paying jobs? Let's go there, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing for. That's the direction, even though I may not be that interested in it or it doesn't align to kind of what I care about. But, that's a driving force that kind of guides us down a path. And, and that's kind of what we're talking about. Maybe that isn't that suited for you or not to make a decision. And I do think we can often make those types of decisions very quickly, as much thought as I think we should.
It's a lifelong practice. And so fast forward from the story earlier when I had the aha moment, I was getting ready to become a CO of my own squadron. And I had been very introspective and I talked about my lens had changed, the mindset had changed. However, even I at that time, that was about 4 years fast forward, I still wanted even more clarity. It's not like, oh, I'm done. I have it all figured out. I've got this blueprint behind me. I'm done. That's not it at all. It is a continual practice. And I hired a coach before I took CO or became the commanding officer. I hired a coach to help me with blueprint. That's when I was first finally introduced the term kind of blueprint to describe what we've been talking about throughout this podcast. But yeah, so that's another example of it's a practice that was 4 years removed. And then since then, it's been small tweaks because I spent my commanding officer tour. And then after that, 3 more years in the military. However, what I started to do with the newfound clarity is I just, like we talked about, I started to make decisions about, for example, we talked about those next jobs that are in this little box on the path that's laid out before you. With the clarity and the confidence that comes from knowing yourself, essentially, and being comfortable leaning into yourself and your blueprint, I started to look for other things. I started to look for maybe some other jobs that I believed would align with me and what I valued and what I really wanted to do. And so that's the job I took. That's the role I took. Right. And then I did it one more time. So I did it, which was a year tour. And then I did it again, which was 2 more years. And then I retired. I love my time in the military. I absolutely love the people I work with. And I'm grateful for all of that. But what I did was I just put myself in a position where I was just feeling fulfilled and aligned, and got to a point where I was like, you know what? I do think it's time for me to pivot out. I didn't upend my life right away. I found the joy and the fulfillment in what I was doing. I got a lot of alignment with what I was doing in the military, in the Navy. I just saw an opportunity, and I saw that it was time to kind of pivot now and start to find that alignment somewhere else. And now that's where I'm at. I feel the joy and the fulfillment, but there's a grind to it. I'm still working it out. I'm still practicing. It's a daily practice. But man, I just feel confident, right? With the clarity I have with Blueprint, I feel confident, I feel empowered that I can do this. I can make this pivot, and I can make mistakes, and I can fail. But I know that I'm moving in the right direction. I'm moving in the direction aligned with purpose. And so I'm going to fail and learn along the way. And I'm still failing and learning in the right direction for me. And that'll be different for Tom, and that'll be different for listeners out there.
That's right. It's like a little compass. It kind of guides you, and it gives you some surety that, this is right for you. And we're never going to be 100% accurate on all this, but to your point, it's an evolution, just like we work on our skills. And life is, in my mind, a journey of continuous improvements and sort of growth. And that starts internally, right? We're improving ourselves and our understanding of ourselves. So it's so key to be doing this, hopefully for as long as we're around, right? Because we're going to continue to grow and expand. So as we kind of wrap up this episode on purpose, and the next stage, we're doing a series of this, and the next one will be touching on things of building resilience as you sort of go down this journey of life and sort of discovering yourself and purpose and cause. Like, what are some things, a couple of things that people can do kind of right after this? Maybe to even just get the ball rolling to start sort of doing this self-discovery?
Man, that's a great question. And I would say the thing that popped into my head when you said that was an energy audit. And what I mean by that is just take a week, take a journal or some piece of paper or your phone, your notes app, whatever, and just for a week, and try to get professional interactions and family interactions, right? Try to capture both scenarios, but just for a week or so, be really mindful of what are you doing each day. This can be at the end of the day. So sometimes what I do is I just take 15 minutes at the end of the day, think back the things that I did that day, the major things that I did, and I'll reflect in my journal. I'll just reflect on, okay, what was my energy like? Was that energy giving? Was that energy draining? Maybe it was something where, man, I felt like I was in the flow. I lost track of time. Those are huge clues to things that are really tied to your blueprint. And just notice, just do that for like a week or so. I'm amazed at how many people have never really done anything like that. And so just doing that for a week, especially if you've never done it, will be in and of itself an eye-opening experience for you, just to be aware of what you're doing every day and how that's contributing to your enjoyment, your energy, your fulfillment. Yeah. And that's a great first step. And then you take those and just, I guess, one more thing, look at those energy giving things, those times when you're in the flow. If hopefully you're lucky enough to be getting into those types of activities. Some people aren't in that spot yet. Doesn't mean they won't be soon. But that was really energy giving. I was in the flow. Maybe I need another 15 minutes or so and go a little bit deeper on those things and really drill down to why. People could do like the 5 whys as an example. Just why did that give me energy? And then you'll pick some 1 or 2 things out and then you'll say, well, why did those things? Right. And you're trying to drill to the core of why, like what was so energy giving about that. And that's the little nugget that is most likely part of your blueprint.
Well, I love it. Brandon, as always, love chatting with you. And it's one of those things like, be curious around yourself and your life and explore and also share these views because it's something myself to do is be compassionate about yourself too. We're all sort of growing and learning and, we're all unique in our own special way. And I do believe that. And it's just sometimes you need some help to maybe take a look at it and appreciate it. So Brandon, I love it. I can't wait to do a few more of these on some different topics. But, my brother, I really appreciate you joining me and sharing some great nuggets here for everyone to think about and hopefully spend some time, right, with yourselves and sort of go through that audit. Could be hugely impactful as you think about the future and maybe what a next step might be for you in your life and your career. But Brandon, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for having me on, and I can't wait to do the next one with you, brother.
All right.
Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.